All right, I'm going to start with a question, a genuine inquiry where maybe protocol would say that I should know the answer, but do I know?
No, we're not to the game show yet, Paul.
Do I know? No, like Jonathan Gannon would say.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
So far, based on the Wise Guys trivia, it's a definite no, N-O. As for KNOW, here's my question, and I want an answer. Did the Arizona Cardinals just play in the hottest game in NFL history?
No.
Because I just did a search, Darren Urban, and somebody did a little blog post, and based on their research, because, I'm busy, I don't have time to do all that kind of research, even though Calvisi Consulting, the guys over in R&D, they did the top 7 hottest games in NFL history. 5 date back to Sun Devil Stadium.
Yeah, I believe that. Were you around for the Packers game in 2003?
No, I was not at that game, but that was one of the games on the list. Might have been number 2.
Had to have been.
Number 1 was Dallas back at Texas Stadium, and there was a road game in early September, 109, 108, something like that.
That 2003 game, I remember it because it was one of the very few games that ever sold out at Sun Devil Stadium because it was the Packers, obviously,
right,
as we play the Packers this week. But it was a 1 p.m. kickoff, and it was like week 3. And I remember it being...
I wasn't there, but I do remember. I remember like the tales of Packer fans being heat stroke were legendary.
It was brutal. And Dexter Jackson picked off Brett Favre in the end zone to seal a Cardinals win.
So anyway, I say that because, Dani, you were down on that field. You experienced it. Here's a picture from one of the San Francisco Chronicle photographers. And this is a thermometer on the Niners sideline. Not even in the sun. 112.
Interesting. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because
on the official game book,
right,
it lists the kickoff temperature at 89 degrees.
Fact. False. I mean, it's listed as 89 degrees.
It was not 89 degrees by any account.
I'm trying to figure out who I feel worse for. Dani, who was feeling some kind of way when she came up after the 90-minute pregame, or Paul Calvisi, who I'm hearing almost died. Is that what happened?
Stop it. Okay.
It was brutal. And where we did an hour to start pregame radio in that booth, the sun directly shines on where I sit and where I sat last year.
I mean,
I was sitting on the ground underneath the table because that was the only relief. And then I was down on the field for about 90 minutes pregame, and it truly took me in the press box, nice and air conditioned, until halftime to actually stop sweating and feel like I could catch my breath and focus on what was going on. And then when I was taking the elevator up, leaving the field to go to the press box right before kickoff, there were a few local 49ers reporters who saw my credentials and were making comments about how I was totally fine, I was immune to it, all this stuff. And I'm like, well, we have a roof. There's never an instance where I am let's not even count pregame radio, where I'm standing on the field in the sun for 90 minutes when it is what felt like more than 100 degrees. And even if you say that for the Cardinals and how they practice, they don't have 3-hour practices. To a certain extent, could you be a little more prepared? Sure. That was absolutely brutal weather.
Did you have sunscreen on, Paul?
Oh, yeah. I had a lot of sunscreen on. Now, Tom Rinaldi, I'm not so sure. At the end of the first quarter, I mean, if you guys remember the movie, and I'm going way back for this one, Airplane, where the pilot at the end is sweating profusely.
Yes.
That's,
he was wearing a jacket and tie, or was he not wearing a
shirt and tie, no jacket, no hat of any sort. So he's getting full sun. I'm like, Tom, you need an IV? You good there? Like, what's going on? And then, of course, later, it was yours truly who almost went down. But pro tip, if you're on the sidelines, the kicking net is your best friend if you can stand behind it for a little bit till Blake Gillikin kicks you out, and or a big offensive lineman. If the offensive linemen are off the bench and actually standing on the sideline, go stand behind 6'7" Paris Johnson Jr. It serves as sort of an oak tree of sorts. So
early in the first quarter, equipment staff members were having to manually hold shades over the benches because it seemed like for some reason they weren't clipping onto the benches. So they were going back and forth, offense or defense, whoever was on the sideline, standing there holding up a sunshade.
Well, Dani had Jim Alejandro's piece of luggage to block the sun in the press box.
Omo very kindly put
In
a
the radio
suitcase
booth.
on the table to help block the sun. Even on the ground, it was still hitting me.
Yeah. So once again, how it lists 89 degrees.
No way.
I mean, that's right up there on our power pole of incompetence. Honestly, we have that running list, during the
Do
year.
we?
Do we have other stuff?
Oh yeah.
What's on the
You
list?
got to throw a couple of things out here.
Okay.
Two of
Remember,
the third members don't know about the list.
No, I broke it down a few weeks ago. Just off the top of my head, the Secret Service,
Okay,
Harrison
that's right.
Butker,
Yeah, that's true.
Kid Rock, limp syncing,
that's true.
on
I
live
remember that
TV.
now. Okay.
Alex Morello running the Coyotes. The Pac-12 commissioners, take your pick on that one. Endless Shrimp at Red Lobster. Was
that's right. I remember
the
Red
Australian breakdancer was number one in the last
Reagan.
power poll of ineptitude we did. We were remiss in not adding the Chicago White Sox, and now
Well, this list is fluid, Paul, right?
it's up to you to keep up with current events. So we're
Yes.
always adding to it. It's endless. And then the latest edition is whoever's responsible for the temperature reading of 89 degrees, which is literally laughable.
Well, I don't know. I've been reading a lot of stuff online about how apparently the weather is being controlled. So
Has Bitcoin made the list?
I see.
Bitcoin.
It will, Dani, by the end of the year. Mark my words on that one. Now, as for the team that won that game, I am here to say there is one and only one team capable of winning that game, just based on the conditions. Because of the fact the Cardinals have spent weeks practicing in 110 plus, there's only one team that could have withstood those conditions to forge a comeback from down 23-10, especially when you have to deal with the mental duress of looking across the field and your opponent is in the shade for much of the second half, and you've got the blazing sun in your face. So in terms of impressive wins, this one ranks right up there with going into Pittsburgh last year, going into Philly last year. I mean, this is an impressive win, and in some ways, it was similar fashion. James Conner. That was the key. Run the ball.
To go up and play as well as the Cardinals did against the reigning NFC champs was very impressive. And then you add in that hot weather and physically, mentally, how draining that is. A complete and impressive performance by the Cardinals. Now, were there some moments where you're thinking, oh my gosh, how are they going to come back from this? Thinking about the interception, the blocked field goal that was returned for a touchdown. Absolutely. The Cardinals
they come out in the second half and they go 3 and out, and you're like, oh boy.
Right, but the Cardinals defense forced a shutout in the second half. And again, the Cardinals offense had a fast start scoring on their first drive. They were able to have a more complete game than we have seen in the past by not just having that fast start offensively, carrying it into the second half.
I mean, you look at that second half defense, 3 takeaways and a turnover on downs, 4 takeaways for the most part. I mean, Darren, that was, and so here's my understanding. That because walking off the field at halftime, Jonathan Gannon, despite the fact you just had a blocked field goal return against the Cardinals for a touchdown, first time since the 70s, since Darren was wearing rayon, okay? That's how long it had been since you had a blocked field goal return for a touchdown against you. You had Nick Bosa step into a passing lane and end up with a pick. So the way the first half ended, yet the head coach came off the field, and in talking with Tom Rinaldi, and I'm right there, and he's saying, you know what, if we do X, Y, and Z, we're good. We're in a dogfight. This is close. And you're like, well, not really so much. And then apparently, he doesn't talk all the time at halftime. Word is that he told the Cardinals at halftime, I sense you guys are about to play your best half of football all season long. And he kind of gave him a pep talk of sorts, which he doesn't do a whole bunch of. He's on game day. He is very cool, calm, and calculated. Like he's big time energy, but on game day, he's just very, very calculated. And so anyway, it's almost as if the team came out and the coach spoke it into existence, and they made it happen. Whether that was like a confidence builder, I don't know, but it was cause and effect because. True or false, did the Cardinals play their most impressive half of football, considering everything against them and the conditions, the second half against the Niners, week 5?
I mean,
both sides of the ball, Darren.
I understand. It's like you.
I know you want to disagree.
I know it's like you completely forgot the Rams first half, but that's okay. Look, I think they played an unbelievable game, and under the circumstances against that team, obviously it was necessary. I mean, it's incredible, and we talk about this all the time, how drastic the narrative can change based on who's ahead at the end of the game.
Yep.
The reality is everything else could have stayed exactly the same. And if Jake Moody's not hurt, they kick that field goal, which would have been an easy field goal for him on that 4th and 23 at the 27 instead of going for it. And that changes everything. But they didn't have their kicker. And I know that's part of the equation, obviously. And that's part of how the Cardinals played for it. I mean, they got a 2-point conversion, which I loved. I didn't even realize in real time. I thought that was just the analytic move to go for 2, to pull within 2, and knowing you still had time to go get a touchdown. I didn't even realize there was a penalty on the 49ers, which in hindsight, and I know it went in the Cardinals' favor, terrible call. Okay, the guy tapped him on the helmet, and you get a giant penalty like that. I'm not a fan. But anyways,
it's sort of like the 2-minute warning in the Lions game, right? To your point, like certain things happen that completely change the narrative. What if there is a pick six by the Cardinals right before the half against the Lions? But at 2.001, sort of like what I lost in fantasy football this week, 1.02. Do we really need tenths and hundredths in fantasy football, by the way? Is this gymnastics? That's an aside. Getting back to the game.
The answer is no.
That 2-point conversion run, I asked the head coach on his TV show this week, how risky was that? Really risky. He agreed. That was risky, even from the 1.
No, and I get that. And if it wasn't for James Conner, unbelievable effort, they don't get it either. So, look, I'm impressed with it, and I don't want to pick at it because what they did get the wins. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Right before Jesse Luketa forced that fumble, I thought the 49ers were going to go in and get a touchdown, and that great comeback was going to be all for naught. So, I mean, it's unbelievable they got the win, but I love the idea that they're moving on. They are happy with the win, and they were clearly happy in the post-game locker room. But this is a difficult test coming up this week with Green Bay, and, you know, it's good. It's not perfect.
The most impressive part of the Cardinals' win is every time you needed a player or a part of your team to step up in those big-time moments, they did. On offense, running back James Conner had a slow start. He had just 9 rushing yards in the first half, and he ended up finishing up with 19 carries and 86 yards. So 13 carries in the second half alone. The Cardinals stayed true to their identity on that game-winning field goal drive. They really relied on Conner to be the bell cow of that offense, and that drained a lot of the clock. 4.5 minutes on that drive. Very impressive the way that their offense was able to stay true in that tough moment, and the fact that the run wasn't working in the first half and they stayed true to it and it worked in the second. Wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., a non-factor for most of the game, 2 receptions. The biggest one though, the 4th and 5, and he catches it for 14, 16 yards. That's huge to have a rookie receiver in a big-time moment mentally be locked in and have that connection with your quarterback. We've talked about the lack of connection on a consistent basis. That argument goes out the window if your rookie receiver can show up in those big-time moments the way that he did. On defense, forced fumble and the fumble recovery and the interception, all those takeaways and the key moments by the Cardinals defense. And we haven't even talked about the fact that they were using an emergency kicker. Matt Prater was out with a left sore knee. So they signed Chad Ryland to the practice squad earlier in the week. Mentally, was able to come back from that blocked field goal and make that 35-yard game winner. Every aspect of that Cardinals team, despite how things looked in the first half, when it mattered most in the second half, they came up big, and that's how they won the game.
You're thinking, okay, a 35-yard field goal for an NFL kicker, you know, that's easy. It's just a layup. And then after the game, he told us, and it's funny because Mac Wilson shared the exact same memory, what Chad Ryland told us on live radio on the field after the game, that while he was waiting to line up that kick, he's having flashbacks to his rookie year, a potential game winner from 35 yards out, right hash, just like that kick, to beat the Giants, and he missed. So think of the mental duress he's under in that moment, right? Anybody who's ever stood over a golf ball, knowing you had just shanked one in the same situation moments earlier, yes, your mind will play tricks with you, and yet he nails it, and the Cardinals get the win. But to your point about the defense, I mean, 9 passes broken up when you had 7 total in the first 4 games combined. Can somebody help me understand that? Minus Garrett Williams, arguably your best cornerback. That one was, so Jonathan Gannon says he was most proud of the way they responded the practice week. When you get a guy like Jesse Lucchetta out there, Darren's point about the forced fumble, a guy just plays with his hair on fire all the time. Nick Rawls talked about that this week. And then you get guys out there who are seek and destroy, like Rabbit. And then maybe another guy like Jalen Thompson who sees the rookie safety getting playing time and out on that field. And Jalen Thompson responds with his best game of the year. Do we all agree on that?
I would agree with that.
So, okay, there's more cause.
After not a great game against Washington.
Exactly. And so all of a sudden, 9 passes broken up against Brock Purdy, who entered the game with 3 wins in 3 games against the Cardinals, 8 touchdowns, 0 picks in 3 career games against the Cardinals. And then the next-gen stat after the game, or NFL research said that was the first scoreless second half in any game of Brock Purdy's career, going all the way back to Iowa State. So pretty remarkable on a lot of different fronts. Question is, did the Cardinals find something on defense? Whether it's who they dressed or how they played. Is it a matter of maybe the Niners with a team that wilted in the heat? I guess someone trying to figure out, is that Cardinals defense staying power or not? One-off or not?
I don't see that as a one-off. We've seen glimpses of it. It was their best performance. I think at least that second half was their best half defensively. It's nice reassurance to know that if you don't have your top cornerback in Garrett Williams, you can have the proper adjustments made by moving Jalen Thompson from high safety and moving him down to the slot and having your rookie Rabbit play. I thought Rabbit looked really good. He had some really nice PBUs and tackles, and it was Thompson on that blitz, the final offensive play for the 49ers, where linebacker Kaiser White had that game-sealing interception. The question, though, is how does Darius Robinson play a role in this? He's been on IR with a calf injury, and having his practice window open, if he's able to come back this week, which is not a sure thing, they have 3 weeks before they have to decide whether or not to add him to the active roster. How does that affect your personnel and who you're going to have active on game days?
When you look at this defense overall, and I think Darius Robinson, whenever he comes back and however much he plays, I think he can only help this defense. And it's easy to do this. I don't want to get completely sideways on this. However, they gave up 26 points to the Bills, and I think the Bills are a pretty good team. They only gave up they completely shut down the Rams. They only gave up 20 to the Lions. They only give up 23 to the 49ers. Now, again, there's circumstances in all those things. Obviously, we're thinking the Washington game is probably an outlier, and the way it's gone. Again, I've never expected this defense to be 2,000 Ravens, but generally, they're keeping the scoring to a point where, and we've said this before, the offense should be able to do enough to win games.
I mean, would you guys agree that the inside linebacker crew and the safety tandem is above average?
I would, yes.
Okay, so now it's incumbent upon the corners, the D-line, the outside linebackers to carry their weight. And yes, the D-line's been banged up and you lose Justin Jones. But okay, if you get that infusion of Darius Robinson back, like you said, Dani, the outside linebackers are doing enough, and then you're seeing improvement out of the young corners. Max Melton seems to get better with more reps. Rabbit comes into that secondary, and as of right, Garrett Williams when he comes back. If the rest of the outside, the inside linebackers and safeties can just be average, then okay. That defense should be good enough to compete.
The Cardinals may have found their 4 rotating outside linebackers that they like. That was Jesse Lucchetta's first active game this year, and he made the most of that opportunity. Rookie Xavier Thomas was inactive for the first time this year. Instead of having 5 active pass rushers on game day, have the Cardinals found that having 4 with a rotation with Zaven Collins, Dennis Gardeck, and Julian Okwara to be enough with what you are looking for on your defensive line. I think that might shift week to week depending on who you're playing. I mean, the 49ers run game entering that game was formidable. Not to discredit their passing game because they have some incredible weapons, but the Cardinals knew going in that they were going to have to stop the run, and I think that's why they had more active defensive linemen than outside linebackers, and it ended up paying off for them the way that they were able to negate Jordan Mason.
And we said it on the pregame show, made total sense, Jesse Luketa, just because of the way the Niners attack the edges. They come through the C gap, right? Everybody in that locker room says that's what Kyle Shanahan does. So you get a dude on the edge, very physical, fierce on game day. I mean, he's out of his mind on game day, just in terms of the mentality he brings, sets a really physical edge. So that made sense, as opposed to more of a speed rusher like Xavier Thomas on the edge. So I get that. Now against a Packers team with Josh Jacobs in a similar scheme to a degree in what LaFleur is running and Shanahan, sort of that similar tree, I could definitely see Luketa, earning yet another start, or at least dressing on game day. But in terms of running the ball, and I said this after the game, and I said this on Monday, to me it's still James Conner's team. When he's running, the Cardinals are firing. And in the 2 wins, he's averaged over 100 yards rushing. And in the 3 losses, he's averaged in the 50s in terms of rushing. But when he's running the ball and he's running over defenders, it just sparks the entire team. I don't know if I can necessarily explain it, but it's real. It is very real. And you look at the biggest wins for the Cardinals have been some of the biggest games for James Conner.
Oh, I 100% agree. There was a question in the mailbag this week about whether James Conner is the best running back this team has had over consistently since moving to Arizona, and he is. If you look, I mean, I think the only person you could compare him to, and they produced completely differently, would be Larry Sanders. Other than that, do you realize, and it's funny, for the longest time when I was covering this team, when I first started covering this team, that you could count, it was very easy to count 1,000-yard rushers because there weren't any. Since moving to Arizona, there's been only one other player to have 2 1,000-yard seasons in an Arizona Cardinals uniform.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
I don't believe this is a question this week, so I think we can ask it right now. Do you know who that is, Paul?
All right, so wait a minute. The 2 other 1,000-yard rushers in Arizona Cardinals history?
No, there's multiple 1,000-yard rushers. There's only one guy who's done it twice. Because if Conner runs for 1,000 this year, he will have 2 1,000-yard seasons for the Arizona Cardinals. There's only one guy who's had 2 1,000-yard seasons for the Cardinals.
And it's not Larry Sanders?
No, Larry Sanders never got there once.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. You see, he had all the.
Ronald Moore got 1,000 yards once upon a time. Yeah. Garrison Hurst got 1,000 yards once upon a time.
Adrian Morrell got it one year, didn't he? Or no?
I think Morrell might have.
Okay.
Beanie Wells did it once. David Johnson did it once.
That's right. Okay. Twice. Wow, you got me. That's the gamut of answers right there. Cardinals running backs.
Edgerrin James
really did it twice.
2006 and 2007, he got like 1,100 and 1,200 yards. Now in the Super Bowl year, he didn't play half the year and got in Wiz's doghouse, and they went with more Tim Hightower, and then Edge reemerged in the playoffs and kicked some butt. But yeah, his first 2 years, he had 1,000-yard seasons. He's the only one to have multiple 1,000-yard seasons. So when you look at what James Conner has done, which is, I'm assuming he gets to 1,000 yards this year. Barring injury, he's going to. He's well on his way.
Yep.
Okay? So he's going to have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. In 2022, he didn't get 1,000. I'm forgetting what he did in 2022. In 2021, he didn't get to 1,000 yards, but he had 18 touchdowns. Like he is, and whatever he did in 2022, I think he had a solid season. It wasn't great, but nothing was great for this team. Over time, I can't name a running back who's been better. And more importantly, it goes back to what you said, Paul, which is he has got that Fitz vibe of being the heart and soul of the team. You know, I think I've said it before on these airwaves. There's a cool factor of James Conner. He's the dude you want to be friends with if you're on the team, and he is absolutely the dude that you want to do everything in your power to help him get forward. When he's running like he did on Sunday, if you're Greg Dortch, how would you not want to try and go take out Nick Bosa watching what James Conner is doing? I'm not saying Greg Dortch is doing that, but you'd want to. You know
that every time James Conner has the ball in his hand, you are going to get 110% every single time.
Yep,
he is the heart and soul of that offense, and the pride that he takes in his skill and what he adds to this team. Conner is not one of the running backs who wants to be shifty and juke all these players. He looks for contact. He likes contact and feels like he gets better as the game goes on and he gets tackled. However, he forced 9 missed tackles in Sunday's win against the 49ers. He gets those dirty yards, and that's why the players respect him, and that's why they want to block for him, not even just the offensive lineman. How could you not want to block for a running back who you know is going to do everything in his power to get those extra dirty yards that you need?
What sort of running back is an offensive lineman's favorite? The running back that doesn't go down on first contact, right? And Connor doesn't go down on first contact, second contact, sometimes third and fourth contact. That's how he runs.
Unfortunately, if he had gone down on first contact, Will Hernandez would be not hurt right now.
Boy. Okay, so let's just get to it.
Way to dampen the mood.
Yeah, Darren ripped the Band-Aid off.
I watched that play like 3 times, and somehow Nick Bosa trying to tackle James Conner, he bounced off James Conner so violently that he flew into the back of Will Hernandez's legs. I've never seen something like that where a guy wasn't intentionally like diving at a guy's legs, but he came off of Conner that way.
So, all right. How do you assess the Cardinals' future in the trenches? You're missing now the right side of your line.
Yeah.
Jonah Williams and Will Hernandez. Look, and Kelvin Beachum, I was shocked. I'll say it. I was shocked how many times he was one-on-one against Nick Bosa against the 49ers, and Nick Bosa had 1 pressure.
Nick Bosa didn't do
off
anything.
26 pass rushes.
Nick Bosa didn't do anything this game.
He had a career low game.
He had an interception, but that was not on Beachum.
So, okay, because, look, you're going into the season, you're like, okay, Beach is the ultimate veteran, great swing tackle, but really his purpose is to get you through a game. Can he get you through a season? Because that's what he's now tasked with.
Yeah.
And now you're going to have to do it at right guard as well with, I'm going to guess it's Tristan Colon. We'll see.
That would be my guess.
Considering he started 4 games last year and he played a bunch of other ones, and he is a veteran with a number of snaps, and it's just too risky. Isaiah Adams, from what we've seen, doesn't look ready yet. And what are the other options? I don't know. Christian Jones, even if he was healthy, you're not moving him inside. He made that clear when he met the media after the draft. He's a tackle.
I mean, to me, you have 3 choices. Who's on the roster right now? You could either you keep Cologne there, which I think is what's going to happen. You could, in theory, use John Gaines.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm just saying. Or you could use Adams, which I would agree with, who's hurt right now himself.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's ready. You know, again, if it's late in the season and your record is 5-10, maybe in this case, maybe use Isaiah Adams. But this is a team that's about to go to Green Bay with a crucial game in terms of early season, trying to be smart about being in the playoff hunt.
All right, so Darren looks like he needs a hot take.
Uh-oh.
Do you trade for an offensive lineman? Remember, the trade deadline in the NFL is Election Day. So you have just under a month away. Do you trade, I don't know, name some names, Calvisi, Zay Jones? He puts a game on film. And if your offense has gotten by with these 3 main receivers, maybe next year fairly deep, at least in terms of numbers at outside linebacker. You know, do you make a deal for an offensive lineman considering the dire injury circumstances? You're now missing your starting right side.
You can start this, Darren.
Here's the deal I take with Mr. Hot Take over there. I don't see anybody giving you an offensive lineman, unless it's for a decent draft pick, which you probably don't want to give up, a decent offensive lineman that you're going to be able to tell me, yeah, he's definitely better than Tristan Colon. You're not going to get it. I mean, I had mailbag questions similarly, like, what are they going to do at offensive line? Don't they have to make a trade? No. If there are guys out there that are available, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Maybe you can clip that one, Omo. If there are guys out there that are, somebody said the phrase was a good and dependable offensive lineman that we need to go get. I'm like, if you have a good and dependable offensive lineman, he's already starting for your own team. Why would he's not going to be out on the street?
Yeah, injuries are rampant across the NFL.
Oh my God!
Name one team that hasn't been ravaged by injury.
When we're watching Red Zone and doing the radio on Sunday mornings. And I'm watching, oh, there's another offensive lineman that went down. There's another offensive lineman that went down. There are no guys. There's nobody out there. That's why you need to build something in the offseason that you can work with. I don't see them making a move.
The key to your offensive line is the QB run game. So maybe we'll go there. The key is Kyler Murray doing to the rest of the league, the rest of the season, what he just did to the 49ers, and that is keeping them more than honest. He took it 50 yards, and with 40 yards to go, he signaled to the sky, sort of Jimi Hendrix style. Google that one up, young crunks. And
no, don't do that.
Went into,
what did you just call me?
I had to give Wolf a shout out for the Mohawk. I had to give him one shout out. I didn't want to mention the Mohawk, all right? I don't want to, but I thought I'd give him a shout out in a roundabout way. And then he gets into the end zone, and he's still yapping and barking. That's when Tom Rinaldi came up to me. He's like, "You see that over there?" And then Jim Omohundro got great audio. I guess they caught him, and it was all clean. But Kyler was very competitive in the moment against Niners Nation, the faithful, as they call them. What's more nauseating, the Seattle fans calling themselves the 12s or the Niners fans calling themselves the faithful? I'll get back to you on that one. But with Kyler, I tell you what, if you give it a thought bubble over the finger to the sky at the 40-yard line, the thought bubble would be something like this. I've got your one rushing attempt for 3 yards right here. Because he was sick and tired of hearing that question all week. Folks like us going, "Oh, geez, Kyler, you only ran it one time on the very first series for 3 yards." He's like, "Yep, I got that right here. Let's end this now on the first drive, second play."
We weren't wrong when we asked about it, number one. I'm just going to say that. 2, rhetorical Paul is the best Paul.
I know. There are very few quarterbacks that have the speed to be able to point to the end zone up high, 44 yards to go, knowing that you are going to score a touchdown with your legs despite having 3 defenders right by you. And Kyler Murray is one of them that's able to pull it off. Big props to tight end Elijah Higgins for a really crucial block on that one. And running back James Conner post-game had laughed and said, "Yeah, I didn't know if he was signaling early or wanting something, but hey, if he's fast enough to do it, he's the only one who can do it." And Murray is fast enough because he hit 22 miles per hour, which is the fastest by a quarterback in 8 years.
That was impressive. I mean, it really was. It was. Someone had asked me, "You know what, Darren, I'm going to pose this question to you, okay? Because I'm about to lose in Wise Guy Trivia, so maybe I'll win this one. Name another player in your lifetime that you've seen do that."
Do what?
Signal. Like, with 30, 40, 50 yards to go, like, "I got this," tapping himself, giving himself props.
I mean, I don't know if it was 30. If you think back in the day, Paul, I'm pretty sure we saw Deion doing it a little early.
That's the answer I gave. That's the only other person I've seen do that, just because Deion knew he was by far the fastest dude on the field.
Yes.
And so he had that confidence.
Deion the player, which I somewhat enjoyed, not necessarily Deion the coach, which I would prefer to pass on.
Yeah, well, I talk college football right now, but somebody's alma mater on national TV Saturday night blew like a 36 to 10 lead.
I had such high hopes for your Golden Bears.
We killed it on game day.
Absolutely
killed it on game day.
Absolutely killed it.
I mean, my God, the signs were epic.
The signs, the social media, right. I got to give big props to you all the way up until the end of the game.
I like the kid's sign. It said, "You guys are blocking the library." That was a good one. There was another one. It was like, I thought this was a protest. That was another sign right there in the masses. And then there was the one, "We do lines of code."
I got to be honest, I wasn't going to bring up college football because my Sun Devils had a nice win, and I didn't want to bring that up around you guys. So I just,
Okay. Well, let's make sure that doesn't carry over into Wise Guy Trivia. Darren, your winning ends now.
It's time for The Wise Guy, the world's fastest growing Cardinals quiz show. The stakes are low, the winner gets absolutely nothing. Here's your hostess with the mostest, Dani Sureck.
After a complaint by one of the contestants last week that the questions are personally attacking him.
Oh.
That we are picking questions for you purposely, Paul. We're changing up the rules a little bit, just the logistics.
Well,
okay?
I'd have some sort of plausible explanation / excuse because there are 7 one-win teams in the NFL, and then there's me, winless.
So Darren won. Well, he's won every week. So Darren will continue to decide whether or not he receives or defers the first question. However, when it is your turn to ask a question, you will give me a number 1 through 4, and that will randomize the questions. So does that appease you a little more, Paul?
I see. I was not insinuating it was an inside job.
The Andy Isabella question fell into your lap last week.
Yeah, no, that was an Emmy. That was an epic Emmy. The Andy Isabella right in and I dropped it. It was just a drop pass in the open field. I dropped it. Okay, that's cool.
Paul the body catcher.
That was so last week. Let's go. Bring it.
I'm going to defer, Dani. I'm going to defer.
Great. Paul, pick a number.
3.
Okay, here's your first question. Packers fans wear what food on top of their head?
Is this for real? Cheeseheads?
Oh, he's
Cheese?
finally on the board. Thank goodness.
Wow, okay. Now come on. I'm almost ashamed of that one. You guys like trying to get me out of the gate? Like, it's just a little spoon feeding him that one there to try and get him on the board? Okay.
You want your real question?
My goodness. It's almost like Darren's playing me in 21 and he's giving me like a 7-point lead or something.
What number did you choose?
I chose 3. I chose 3.
Okay, here's your real question. Paul, now that you know what it feels like to get a question right.
Oh,
here we go.
So that was a faux question. Oh, my goodness. That's cool. You know what? If I had sleeves right now, I'd be rolling them up. Let's go.
Here we go.
Real quick, Paul is winning the pick, so we can throw this in because I want him to feel better. He went 9-4 last week, one game better than me. So you now have the lead on your own in the picks for this season.
You know who I am right now? I'm Dennis Gardeck. The play before he batted that pass, he came to the sideline. Somebody did something untoward to Dennis Gardeck. He was all irate.
Wait, a 49er did something untoward?
And then he checked back into the game. He was hot, and boom, he got up there and deflected the pass and made a play. I'm about to do the same. Let's go.
Here we go. In the 2015 NFC divisional game against the Packers, Carson Palmer threw a 5-yard touchdown pass to Larry Fitzgerald to send the Cardinals to the NFC Championship game. What was the name of the game-winning play call?
All right, it was the shovel pass. They've been practicing it every Friday for 2 years. The earlier 75-yarder was Hail Larry. At least that's what it was dubbed. What was the stinking shovel pass, and what was it called? There was Adrian Wilson in the end zone, pretty much strangling Larry once he got the... what was it? It was called the Fitz Special.
Darren has the opportunity to steal.
I got to be honest, I'm drawing a blank.
Wow, Shoveloki.
Shoveloki. I did not recall that. I had no chance. No chance.
If I knew that once upon a time, I don't. Usually if I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, I have no. I don't know if I ever knew that.
Okay, that's next level.
Darren, pick a number.
A 1.
I'm not sure Larry Fitzgerald remembers the name of that play. I'll be honest with you.
She brought it up and I'm like, okay, there's all these different parts of the play, and then I'm like, I'm not remembering that one.
Okay, question number 1.
Yes.
In the 2009 NFC wildcard game, the Cardinals beat the Packers in a 51-45 overtime thriller. In that game, quarterback Kurt Warner threw 5 touchdown passes to 3 different receivers. Name the receivers.
Ooh.
Wow.
Larry Fitzgerald, Steve Breston, Early Doucette.
3 for 3. Nice job, Darren.
Thank you.
The early Doucette, he earned it. He earned it with the early Doucette. I'd like to scream foul, but no, he earned it. Okay, that's cool.
You want number 2 or 4, Paul?
I think early Doucette had 2 catches, 2 touchdowns.
The opposition gets paid too every time they make a. Once in a while they make a play. Let's go.
Do you want number 2 or 4?
I'm going 4.
Okay. After spending his first 6 seasons in Green Bay, this North Pole Alaska native played 3 seasons with the Cardinals. Can you name him?
Darren College.
Paul's on the board for real.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Amazing, Paul.
Yes, he told us about his reindeer in North Pole, Alaska, that he had on the Big Red Rage. I do remember that. Okay, there you go.
He didn't spell his first name right. But
20 years of morning radio, sleep deprivation did not wipe away that memory.
All right.
Okay, Darren.
Okay.
In the 2015 NFC divisional playoff game, the Cardinals defeated the Packers 26-20 in an instant classic. But before the Cardinals secured the win, Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers connected on 2 Hail Marys at the end of regulation to send the game to overtime. Name the Packers player who was on the receiving end of both Hail Marys.
Schroeder?
Incorrect. Paul has the opportunity to steal. This could be your first win of the season, Paul.
Oh, my goodness. I remember the guy jumping up right there instead of right in front of Justin Bethel. It was Jeff. Oh, my goodness. I don't, Jeff Olongo. No idea.
Half right, Paul. Jeff Janis.
Janis. Dang it.
All my Packer reporter friends would be very disappointed in me.
For the first time,
we're going to
this season of Wise Guy, we're going to a legitimate tiebreaker, not just because we're doing it for fun.
All right, so we got to write this down. Is that the idea?
I believe so.
You know what? I conveniently left a pen elsewhere.
You
so,
can borrow my
know,
pen
okay,
after
all right,
I'm done.
that's cool. This is where my conditioning takes over. I firmly believe that. It's
All right.
overtime. Let's go.
I will write something down and then
So
give him my pen.
closest to the number wins. Here we go.
We can go over, though?
I'll allow it.
Okay.
Including playoffs, how many career touchdowns did Larry Fitzgerald have against the Packers? Including playoffs, how many career touchdowns did Larry Fitzgerald have against the Packers?
Okay.
Darren has written down his answer and has kindly handed over his pen to Paul.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
Paul?
I just showed her mine. You can
Darren,
just tell her.
Number 1. Uno.
I said 7.
The correct answer is 6.
Oh.
3 in the regular season and 3 in the playoffs.
I thought it was playoff. Okay, I thought it was playoffs only. My bad.
I said
totally,
including
Well, even if it was
I read
playoffs, so
it
we
twice.
just-
I heard playoffs only. I screwed
read
it
it
up. That's why I
twice.
put 1. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put 1.
To be fair,
Anyway, I screwed up the question.
playoffs only would. He had 2 in the 09 game. We just got through talking about it, and then he had the shovel
I remember the shovel, and then
and remember she said Kurt Warner threw all those touchdown passes in the other game, and I said Fitz. And
oh
Early
yeah, the
said-
5 and the 4
So,
incompletions.
including
yep, you're right.
the playoffs, Larry
You're right.
Fitzgerald versus
Yep.
Green Bay.
Yep.
6 games, 30 catches, 426 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
In how many games?
6 games.
That's not bad.
Congratulations, Darren.
There you
Undefeated. But
I pulled it
Paul
out.
is on the board.
Yeah.
And that is a
Come on,
win
come
in and
on.
of
Okay,
itself.
okay.
No, I want my
Oh,
pen
you
back.
want the
Give him his
pen?
pen
I thought
back.
he was going to be a good sportsman. I thought it was sportsmanship.
Come on, Paul.
He was going to give me,
No one has ever accused me
knuckles
of being
and
a good sport.
little fist bump and nothing. I get Jack over here. That's
I'll
cool.
give you a fist bump if you want.
There are things I don't
Guys,
remember.
just hang on. For those not watching the video,
Yeah.
Darren put his fist out for a fist bump and put it down as Paul put his up, and then Paul put it down. So
It's really
each of you
bad.
just left each other hanging.
Yeah, it was bad.
That was bad.
Okay,
good
carry
thing
on,
there's
Paul.
no
Find a
video.
segue here.
Good thing there's no video.
I think I'm gonna deactivate myself from the 53 man next week for Wise Guy Trivia. That's
Those
what I
were
think.
hard questions
I'm
today.
yeah, it's
Jeff Janis. Son of a biscuit.
yeah, okay. So should we talk modern day Packers and Jordan Love and what exactly you're going to get on Sunday, the latest greatest young quarterback you have to go against, and a guy who won a playoff game last year in decisive, dominant fashion.
Yes, he did.
It's interesting. 2 weeks ago, they beat Minnesota, which turns out the Vikings have a really good defense, and he threw for nearly 400 yards, and he had 4 touchdowns, but he also threw 3 interceptions in that game. And then he threw arguably the worst pick 6 of the season last week from his own end zone.
We're not going to talk about any memories that it dredged up.
Oh,
Yeah.
I immediately showed that to Darren against the Rams from the end zone.
Yeah, it looked like another pick 6 by the
The
Rams.
same
Yeah.
part of the field.
Yes, it did. And so what exactly do you think you're getting in Jordan Love and at Josh Jacobs, another very physical running back? I tell you, I look at the Packers, and I know there was a lot of, Cardinals and Lions, a lot of similarities and parallels. I look at a Packers team that was the youngest team to win a playoff game since 1970. Their last 2 draft classes have been 13 and 11 players. They have a young dual-threat quarterback. They have a hard-charging, hard-nosed running back in Josh Jacobs. Aren't those all similar boxes you can check for the Arizona Cardinals? There are a lot of, I see a lot of similarities between the Packers and the Cardinals.
No, I think that's a fair comparison. I don't watch them as much as I would have liked to really drill down. I know that Jordan Love has made incredible strides since he was a rookie. I think I saw a stat today, and in fact, I know I saw a stat today that against 4-man rush, which is something to keep in mind because the Cardinals struggle with just doing a 4-man rush, he's averaging something like 10 yards of completion against 4-man rush.
Okay. Wow. So a first down every time he throws it against a 4-man rush.
Probably,
Okay.
yeah. So, I mean, I think the
That's all
Cardinals
right. Darius Robinson will take care of that.
The Cardinals did a better job against the run last week. Not a great job, but a
Right.
better job. And they're going to need to do that again. But the Packers won last week, even though they had all their drama with Romeo Doubs and being suspended. And they have all these young receivers, the Wicks kid who's pretty good. I mean, there's nobody that's going to grab your attention names-wise. but they're getting the job done. Xavier McKinney is, I think, got an interception in every single game.
Yep, 5 for 5.
I mean, that's going to be a tough place to play. Thank God, at least it'll be cool. Won't be snowing like last time we were there, but it'll be way cooler than San Francisco.
So I violated my rule, and I actually looked ahead instead of just the day before we leave for the trip. I looked at the forecast. So you can pack
correctly?
And so the Friday forecast is a high of 78. The Sunday forecast is a high of 54, which just reinforces that old saying about the Midwest. If you don't like the weather, wait 24 hours. It'll be completely different.
You know what? I was just talking to our photographer, Caitlin Epps, who was my roommate on the road, and she was saying, oh, do you know what you're going to wear in Green Bay? And I told her that I have this coat, and she was like, it's not going to be cold enough for a coat. It's going to be warm. Joke's on her. I got the coat.
A quick question, as long as because obviously you guys had your rant about the heat earlier in this thing.
Rant makes it sound like we were out of line.
I looked down from the press box, and it looked fine to me.
And how come you didn't go onto the field, Darren? Why did you stay in the press box?
But I do know that the last time we went to Green Bay, which it won't be snowing this time, but it was absolutely snowing, and I remember having to do a pregame show off on Facebook with Dani, your predecessor, Lisa Matthews, and dressed as warm as I could. And after 10 minutes, I couldn't feel any extremities. I'm wondering how you guys
do 3.5 hours down there.
Yeah, well,
Darren.
I was going to say, how do you guys feel about weather games? I have an idea of what you think about heat games, but Paul, you've been in both.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the last time we were there, 2018, that was the Mike McCarthy game. He was fired.
The Josh Rosen game, I like
Josh
to think
Rosen
of it
game. Speaking of Fitz, what was it, 3rd and 19? He had that ridiculous one-handed grab, extended the drive, Cardinals win, McCarthy fired
Zane
before
Gonzalez.
Redbird won, even left the, Zane Gonzalez. So, there's a lot of history there.
Okay, here's a better question.
Yeah.
Paul Calvisi, power rankings, worst to least worst. Miami 2016.
Oh, the rain, sheets of rain.
Green Bay 2018.
Right.
San Francisco 2024.
Well, are you going to throw in the New England snow game? That was epic.
You get one. We only want one snow game. Which one was worse?
Well, the New England snow game was a lot worse.
Okay,
than
then we'll go with Okay, New England 2008, Miami 2016.
Okay. All right.
Torrential downpours.
I'm going to go off the board for D. And that was week 3 at Jacksonville about 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
It was almost as bad as the Niners heat, but you had the humidity, and then you had a 5-hour flight home.
Yeah.
So that was the difference in that one.
I think I smelled you on that flight.
Yeah, you probably did. That was a rough flight home.
Weather games are only more tolerable because we don't have to deal with them, because we have a roof. So I approach a weather game of, okay, it might suck, but it's 1 week. It's not like we have to brave those elements every single week. And I did sideline preseason in 2022 in Tennessee for that preseason game. Paul was up in the booth. And it was so hot and so humid that I remember standing outside the locker room for post-game interviews for a show. And somebody told me that I looked like I'd gone swimming. I was so sweaty. That was not enjoyable. Every woman loves
to hear that too.
That was not enjoyable. And I think back to last season around Christmas Eve. I was on the sideline. Paul was up in the booth at Soldier Field in Chicago, and that was cold. I think it's easier to handle a cold game. I'm not even going to talk about precipitation, though. I'm not going to talk about rain because thankfully, knock on wood, I haven't experienced that. But I think it's easier to stay comfortable when it's cold with layers or hand warmers or being by the heaters. There was no way, Paul, for you to get any relief during the game on the sideline in San Francisco Sunday.
Well, the worst part about it, the cold games, right? The snow games, the ice, the freezing temperatures, is the bench is heated.
Yeah.
And you can't get there.
Nope.
You're outside the 30s.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like you're outside the plain glass window. You're window shopping. You can see inside as a kid and all the toys that you want for Christmas.
Don't put your tongue on that window.
Yeah, exactly. And then some of the snarky, linemen and stuff. When you get near the heat blower, they'll be like, "No, players only," and they'll stiff arm you away and they'll shove you outside the 30 again. And so that's what gets mentally tough on that one. You're so close to being warm and you're not. So. As for this game, it's not going to be that bad. Weather will not be a factor. Jordan Love will be a factor. Here's one scouting report I got from people who have watched the film on Jordan Love. They say that he has a similarities in his game, even mannerisms, to Aaron Rodgers, because he spent 3 years under Aaron Rodgers. So a lot of the way he sort of runs the play action game, even some of his boots, even some of the ways he'll flick the ball, because he has ridiculous arm talent. Jordan Love really has a gun. And it's kind of Aaron Rodgers-esque.
Is it anything like the Nebraska kid who's aping Patrick Mahomes? Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah. Dominic Raiola?
Yeah.
Yes, akin to that. Sort of, one quarterback sort of emulating another in the mannerisms and so forth. Yes.
So Jordan Love probably hasn't been vaxxed?
So, we can see what's vax/vexing for Darren. You can see what's still under his craw when it comes to Aaron Rodgers on that front. Oh, my goodness.
Looking forward to Jordan Love's trip to Egypt this mini camp.
But if you get a win in this game, now you're 3-3.
Yeah.
Potentially atop the NFC West. I mean, you talk about a pivot point in the season. You get a win in this game, which I definitely think it's doable, feasible, plausible. And then all of a sudden, what's the immediate schedule look like after that? You come home against the Chargers.
Yeah, Monday night game against the Chargers, and then you're at Miami and hoping there's no rain.
Well, what you're hoping is there's no Tua Tagovailoa, right? That's
Miami
what you're
looks
hoping.
pretty horrible without
Yes,
Tua.
they do.
Pretty horrible.
Yeah,
so
they
if he's
do.
still out, I mean, I would love to. It's a huge game in the NFC West possibilities, and then Seattle and San Francisco play each other Thursday night. Unfortunately, you guys have to give me the update on that. I will be attending the very important Corona del Sol Castillo girls flag football game that we'll be televising this week. That's at Corona, so I will be going to that game.
Are you on the broadcast?
I am not, but I'm going to make an appearance. And but that 49ers Seahawks game is on Thursday night, and obviously if the 49ers win and the Seahawks lose a third in a row, and then they're both 3-3, and then you're 3-3, and you got the tiebreaker at least over the 49ers, and you're 2-0 in the division. I mean, this could go in a really good direction if the Cardinals can hold it together, especially on the offensive line.
By the way, you know the reason why I'm leading you by 1 in the picks this year.
Why is that?
Are you picking whoever is playing Seattle every week?
Thank you, Dani.
I love it.
Thank you. I actually went with the Giants.
The pettiness is on a different level.
It was the Honolulu black and blue theory, and now it holds up again. Teams that
Why would you tell us your success?
the teams the week after playing the Lions are now 0-4 by a decided margin, all lopsided losses. Well, for the most part, the Seahawks lost, but at home to the Giants, 29-20. Giants didn't even have Malik Neighbors.
Are you picking, though, the team who plays Seattle to beat Seattle every week?
Did you?
Not this year. In the years past, I have. Yes.
Did you?
Just out of spite.
Did you shed a tear when you saw that Isaiah Simmons had the game-clinching field goal block?
I did see that.
You yelled at the screen, Isaiah!
Yes. That was that did make sense in a lot of ways. You're absolutely right.
Which, by the way, a lot of people are complaining about it, and I was asking Jeff Rogers about the play, and he's like, "No, I see that as being a legal play." And the way it was explained by the officials, and if somebody didn't see it, essentially, the Giants players, the Seahawks field goal block team likes to get low in certain situations, and the Giants knew this. And you're not allowed to hold or pull a blocker, but you can push them down. And the Seahawks guys went low, and the Giants guys just basically put their hands on the backs and pushed them down. And Isaiah Simmons was just standing at the line of scrimmage, and he basically did a standing broad jump over the line and blocked the field goal.
So, because previously we learned this in the 2016 game, Cardinals and Seahawks, that jumping over the line of scrimmage on a kick is illegal.
Incorrect.
So when does it become legal? When does it become
you
legal?
You cannot take a running start. You absolutely can jump over it from a standing position.
Start. So that was a difference.
So you have to get these guys low enough to clear them.
So when Bobby Wagner did it twice in that 2016 game, he had a running start or did not?
I don't remember.
Because remember, there was a lot of whining that was illegal.
I don't remember the specifics, and I feel like the rule was tweaked after that year anyways.
Okay, yeah, I think it was actually.
But the current rule allows you to do it, but you got to have a guy who can get some hops.
But the single biggest play by the biggest man on the field had to have been on Monday night. Kalen Sanders, right?
Yes.
Who's the brother of the backup dancer.
Oh, he's going there.
For Taylor Swift.
Who was also at the game.
That got mentioned like umpteen times,
well,
right?
the thing was, it didn't get mentioned umpteen times. It just happened that they were mentioning it right when that play happened. So then they really leaned into it.
Okay, so 2 things about that play. My favorite part about a 37-yard return out of your own end zone was when Xavier...
From a defensive lineman.
When Xavier Worthy, the fastest man in the NFL, Mr. Sub-4 240, he closed the gap. Despite as well as that big man ran, and he ran almost 16 miles an hour, okay, Xavier Worthy closed the gap in an instant and then just went boing right off him. Yeah. Just bounced right off the 340-pounder.
Xavier Worthy not making a lot of tackles in his career.
No, he pinballed off him. That was hilarious. Now, here's my question. Which Cardinals big man would you most enjoy taking a ball back some 40 yards on a return? If you had your choice of a Cardinals big man, 300+, who would you want the ball in their hands? And by the way, did that guy not play some former running back high and tight?
He knew. Now, somebody said...
Got in traffic, put 2 arms around it?
He did play running back in high school.
Okay, there you go.
So there's a little bit of that. But I was thinking somebody's going to come up and knock it from behind him, and that was not happening.
Are we talking just D linemen?
No, you can
300-pounders.
Whatever you want. Doesn't have to be 300 pounds. We're not measuring these guys, but 280.
I'll give one on both. I think on defense, my gut tells me Dante Stills.
Okay.
I think that could be good. And then on offensive line, I don't know if I would pick Yelda Froholt or Paris Johnson. I think I'd pick Johnson.
See, I understand this is a tough subject right now, but I absolutely would have picked Will Hernandez.
Oh yeah, see, I'm with you. I would have liked 76.
Will Hernandez on defense. I want to see Tonga. I want to see
or like a Roy Lopez.
Well, Roy would lean into it. That's actually
maybe I'll change my answer. Sorry, Dante. I'll change my answer to Roy Lopez.
Roy's got that wrestling background, so he's got a little bit of athleticism in him.
I'm going to go L.J. Collier just because he had that return. Against the Lions? He had the return,
But he tried the spin move and it.
Yeah, I feel like he deserves a second chance. Fair. He was getting a hard time in the locker room. He was trying to tell everyone that instead of getting it at the 40, if he would have got it at the 20, he would have housed it. It was just a little too far for him, but he also maintains that nothing boosts a team morale more than a big man return, so.
I like it. On this podcast, we got to Will Hernandez running the ball, and we got to Greg Dortch blocking Nick Bosa. So, I mean, I think we've covered all those angles.
Did that really happen, or did you make that up?
I'm making it up.
Okay, all right, so.
It's the power of Connor.
All right, here's my last question, and this is a real question. Unlike the original question to come full circle, I didn't have a real answer, but this is an honest question. Zay Jones.
Oh, yeah?
Where does he fit in this offense? Because let me say this. Zay Jones did a lot of good things in that Colts joint practice. The offense is a little up and down in those 2 joint practices against the Colts. I'm going to be kind. But Zay Jones was excellent, and you know where he's really good? In those red zone drills. I think they're underestimating his height. They got him listed at 6'2". I swear he's 6'3". I mean, he actually looks taller whenever you're next time you're next to Zay Jones, okay? I want you guys to tell me. It's sort of
I feel like there's low-hanging fruit I could take.
Don't take it.
Don't do it, Darren. You're better. They're better than that. You're better than that. So I want you to size him up literally and tell me. I think they're underestimating his height. I think they're sandbagging a little bit, sort of like Fitz in golf. And I think Zay Jones in the red zone potentially could be very valuable for this team.
I'm curious to know if they let him play this weekend. Like if they put him on the roster, they got to make a roster move.
Sure, but they have 3 weeks.
No, with him, they've only got 1 week.
Okay.
They got to do something by next Monday. They got a week.
So he can miss, and then they can ultimately they can wait till Monday.
Wait till the Monday, the day after the Packers game. They can wait, so they can say, okay, we're going to give you a full week of practice and figure you out, or they can say, yeah, you look pretty good. We can move you in right now.
Okay.
I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, we're already sitting here. We didn't really talk about it, and I don't want to get into it now because we're running long. But we didn't really even get into Marvin Harrison. He made the great 4th down catch, but he only had 2 catches, and again,
on 7 targets,
more misses than catches. Like, is McBride getting the ball enough? All this stuff, and you're going to add somebody else in the mix who needs the ball. Like, it's going to be interesting.
McBride had your most targets from your receivers, 9.
Good,
yeah, having Trey McBride back after missing the week prior, despite having a ribs injury that he showed up late in the week on the injury report. He looked nice in his first game back.
And maybe it's not about targets. Maybe it's just making sure you're completing more of them.
So here's what we'll do. Instead of us talking about it, we'll direct you to the Pash Pod because he has Tom Rinaldi on, and Tom Rinaldi told a little story that while they were waiting for a live TV interview after the game, he's standing there with Kyler, he's standing there with James Conner. Wasn't taped, so they had to wait like 2 minutes, okay? And as they're waiting, Kyler was kind of shaking his head, kind of grumbling a little bit, and Tom said, "What? You just won the game." He's all, "What's wrong?" He's like, "Could have been a lot better. Should have been a lot better on offense." Like Kyler was replaying some of the missed passes, and I'm guessing some of the failed connections with Marvin Harrison Jr. in particular.
He was not happy after the game that they did not end the game with the ball in their hands.
Okay. But to me, look, it's always about the win, okay? The what, the win. But then if you're talking about the how and the why, there's still a lot of room for improvement between K1 and wide receiver 1.
I agree.
And if that does click in the next week or month, look out. Honestly, to me, that's one of the greatest reasons to be bullish about the rest of the season. You get through this gauntlet in the schedule. Somehow you can get a win in Green Bay and then come back at 3-3. And now all of a sudden there's a lot of upside to look forward to, you would think. Kyler to Marvin Harrison Jr., and then that trickles down through the rest of the offense. Let's leave it on that note here on Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation.